Did you take your pill?
Can't you tell?
Every day we wake up in an abyss, really hoping we can float up out this cabin because the ladder's a myth. The tokens are counterfeit and the screams are still dismissed. The dreams are distilled mist like they never exist. They siphoned the innocence, encrypted the evidence, and made you watch with subscriptions bought with dollars and cents. So let us remain buoyant while we float through the dents. Just remember, your consent could be your greatest expense. Hey, yo, man, since I've been writing these YouTube scripts, my pen game has been crazy. Anyway, I'm going to keep it a beanbag with you. The decision to drop the first 2 episodes of The Institute was a good move. Both of these episodes watched together definitely establishes all of the characters introduced and their motives. The symbolism, the intro song, the acting is pretty good and the pacing is on point. We're gonna really get into the symbolism with this video since we briefly touched on everything in my recap. But before we do that, I'd like to thank all of you for taking out the time to watch my video. And if you're new to Real Enigmas and Theories, welcome. This video will contain spoilers for The Institute episodes 1 and 2 and a couple of sprinkles of From and Severance in there as well, just so you know. So without further ado, let's cook. So, right off the bat, I've been itching to talk about the similarities not only to From, but Severance as well. The egg and Vesica Pisces notes are heavy within this show. Stuff like Miss Sigsbee's jelly beans with that egg or ovum or oval shape. I remember last year back in the From Season 3 promotional teasers, they placed 2 wagon wheels on top of each other in the exact same pattern as this picture right here. Check it out. The way these wheels are placed is definitely deliberate. And this shot from the promo footage of Season 3 of From never ended up in any of the Season 3 episodes. This Vesica Pisces is referencing a portal and a countdown to a new system. And we'll talk about that later as the season progresses and a little bit in this video. Now, the first 2 episodes gave us a small look into what's actually happening with the children other than the experiments that we know about that are designed to enhance their telepathic and telekinetic abilities. But we also see them being given a drug by Dr. Hendricks being played by Robert Joy, who also plays Henry in From. You got Henry and Hendricks. Now in Season 3 of From, we learn that Henry's wife Miranda started seeing visions and hearing voices that connected her to this nightmare town after taking a hit of acid. And this place is much like the Institute in a sense, being that the children are stuck in a place that they cannot escape. Or should I say it's hard to escape. No doubt this show is referencing the very real MK Ultra and other government programs. And to show Hendricks administering a drug with the From connections and Henry's wife doing acid is calling back to the forced drug government experiments in real life. And now that we're talking about that, we might as well take this time to mention some of the Severance connections that I'm sure jumped right onto you if you watched the show. The first big one would be the tokens for the vending machines. In Severance, employees receive tokens that could be used to purchase things from the vending machines. And in the Institute, we're witnessing that very same thing. At first in Severance, I thought it was just a thing to add to the atmosphere of the severed floor. And at the very most, I just thought it was a reference to cryptocurrency. But both can be true at the same time. And we're definitely going to talk about that a little bit later, because it all has to do with the portal, and we're going to dive in. Another Severance connection is the logo pins worn by the staff, very reminiscent of the logo pins worn in Severance. Both logos also scream Vesica Pisces symbolism. The balloons also show up in the Institute, which is something that I totally didn't expect. Mrs. Sigsbee says that the work is the most important work being done in the world. And Severance also says this many times in both seasons. The work is mysterious and important. You've got the mention of teeth and fillings, just like in Severance, the mention of a mustache man who's a doctor, and now Dr. Hendricks has a funny little mustache. This could be a Hitler reference with Nazi operatives involved with Project Paperclip, which led to MK Ultra. Now, I'm pointing out these connections across these shows to illustrate a point that I've been trying to make since the beginning of this channel. Many TV shows and movies have all been adapting the same symbolism across different studios and platforms. The Institute and From are both from MGM and share some of the same components, so that's why I'm pointing out Severance connections as well, being that it's on a totally different network and studio. So let's continue on into some of the symbolism in this show intro and let that take us right into some heavy clues for the Metascript. Now, the song choice for this intro sequence is pretty heavy in itself. The song Shout by Tears for Fears is something I'm very familiar with. This song came out in the Orwellian year of 1984, and this joint used to bang on MTV and was in the top 5 before the whole album was even released. I think the whole album came out in 85. The other big single on that album was Everybody Wants to Rule the World. That's a classic. They named the whole album Songs from the Big Chair. The band itself was heavily influenced by the work and philosophy of Arthur Janov, a pioneering psychologist who developed primal therapy, a method based on the belief that repressed childhood pain is the root of most psychological suffering. I mean, these dudes entitled their album Songs from the Big Chair. That means their music is literally their therapy. And I gotta respect that because my music is my therapy. Screaming and shouting are some of the most natural things humans do when emotions run too big to hold inside. From a baby's first cry to a shout of frustration or relief, it's just something that we all do without even thinking. That raw sound doesn't just help us get attention, it helps to regulate our bodies. When you scream, you activate the vagus nerve, which connects your brain to your heart and your gut. Across cultures, screaming was never just noise. It was a medicine and it was also ritual. From babies crying to shamanic ceremonies, people cried out to purge grief, break through fear, and touch something beyond themselves. That raw voice was proof that pain and power could exist in the same breath, and ancient people knew this. And fast forward to Arthur Janov, he was somebody that could wrap his mind, thoughts, and philosophy around this concept. The brilliance of pairing Shout with the Institute is how it echoes both ancient and modern truths. And I love how the cover doesn't change the overall feel to the record, but it adds this acoustic vibes that blends perfectly with the subject matter of the show. Whoever chose that record should definitely get a raise. And whoever edited the title sequence should get a raise as well, because just check this out. Let's go through it real quick. We start the title sequence off with a shot of the lobby and that huge logo. And then we get a shot of a dark hallway, unlike what we see our main characters in. This tells me that the living conditions get worse. Then we see a child being escorted into a testing room. A few of those fake morale posters and a shot of a child being experimented on. That poster saying "Your Time to Shine" is definitely a Stephen King's Shining reference. It kind of makes me think that all of this is in the same universe. We get a shot of Dr. Hendricks, some jumping jelly beans, and I wonder if we'll see somebody move the jelly beans with their telekinesis. The testing rooms look like they definitely get worse as the recruits pass through the Institute. We see this green drug being administered and proof that this has been going on for a long time. They give us a shot of Iris's back half party or front half party, however you want to look at it. And that shot of the cigarette landing in the cereal is a real artsy touch. It screams a child being treated as an adult. We get a shot of that vending machine as well, and more shots of the children in what I believe to be the back half. We get Luke being escorted into a room and a few shots of recreational things outside, all surrounded by a barbed wire fence. But here's the part that really caught my eye. The different types of shoes that seem to be from different eras, suggesting that these experiments have been taking place for some time. Even a lot of the shots of the other children seem to be old and in black and white, which echoes the lyrics of the theme song. Then we get this really crazy shot of one of the orderlies wheeling a child into a room with many children in beds hooked up to Oculus-type goggles. This is definitely the craziest shot in the intro, if you ask me. And I can tell you right now that if this is what the back half looks like, somebody in the front half has been telling a damn lie. Because if they were going to erase minds and send kids home safely, this place wouldn't be kept in such conditions. And at the very end, we get a shot of that logo. We'll talk about that logo later on in the season because it definitely connects to From, and I'm going to talk about it, but not in this video. But that logo does take us back to some of the esoteric elements. And in my first video about the show, I just focused on the trailer, but that trailer pretty much lays out the entire story for you. And I think that the mystery will be more with the characters and how they adapted things from the book to the show. And with this serious situation that's going on with the kids, you almost kind of look over what's going on with Tim being played by Ben Barnes. I remember him as the brother-in-law from Westworld. He's been in a bunch of stuff though. Great actor. His encounters with the lady Annie shows me that he's tapped in real heavy. Their encounter is also where we see that Vesica Pisces set up. And in my first video, I talked about the Metascript, and one of the characters at the school connects our character Luke directly to this concept. She asked him, "Are you a kid genius like in a movie?" And yes, Luke is a kid genius in a TV show. I would have fell out my seat if he would have said that back to her. But we do get his sense of humor when he answers to her about sleeping in a Holiday Inn, which is a reference to Searching for Bobby Fischer, where Josh and his parents would stay in hotels when they were taking him to chess matches. Her asking him a question that links him to the Metascript, and his answer being a reference to a movie about a real-life person, crosses Luke into the Metascript. And with that scene happening right at the beginning of the show, peep how everything after that scene starts to feel different. Even though my first video just focused on the trailer, it got pretty deep into the meta-scripting of some of the show. And I think that in this video, we should go a little bit deeper into it. Just for the simple fact that the first 2 episodes add even more credence to the sentiments that I made in the trailer breakdown. I spoke about the Trump connection, the Venn diagrams, and Kamala. And by the way, Venn diagrams are Vesica Pisces. Vice President, Vesica Pisces, the connections to From and the Thomas Matthews character, and Thomas Matthews being the name of the Trump shooter, the number 47 popping up everywhere, and the Twin Tower 9/11 connection with building number 7. By the way, building number 7 was 47 stories tall. And the biggest clue that puts cement on this theory is that the show dropped on the anniversary of the Trump shooting in the 7th month. Then we look at this show, and Luke's address, his house number is 47. Then we have that KG jersey getting ripped. 2 and 1 are the towers that fell. And we see the deliberate shot of 2 and 1 in the elevator when Tim gets on, and we find out that he was supposed to be on a plane to New York. Now, here's a detail that wasn't in the novel. Tim was dealing with the grief of killing a 16-year-old kid in an attempt to stop a robbery in progress. This shooting took place at the Westfield Mall, which is a reference to the Westfield World Trade Center, the shopping mall located in the Oculus at the World Trade Center hub in Lower Manhattan. And remember, the kids in the back half were wearing the Oculus goggles. The detail about the shooting in the Westfield Mall is not in the book. Just like the right ear clips and the dots are not in the novel, but it connects to Trump getting shot in the right ear, and the show is premiered on the anniversary of that shooting. Now, both of those details were added into the Metascript adaptation for this show, and I'm absolutely all here for it. I want to see all of it. Give me all that symbolism. Give me all of that Metascripting. Show us that our universe is encoded with many different symbols, man-made and natural phenomena. I love it. And before any of you come in the comments with any of the name calling and ad hominem attacks, please, before you do so, why don't you actually address some of the information that's being brought forward? Because you see, simple adaptations are when something changes slightly or is removed altogether. For instance, Kalisha asked Luke if he had chickenpox right before kissing him. Later, she explains that it could keep Luke in the front half a bit longer if he catches it from her. But in the novel, the Institute uses chickenpox as a cover-up for the missing kids. That's just a slight change. This whole bit with the right ear trackers, Westfield Mall, just happens to be added in connections with the Trump shooting and the show being released on the actual anniversary. Yeah, that's not by chance, that's deliberate. Another detail that was added are the dots. And in medieval Europe, polka dot patterns on fabric evoke a deep instinctive fear because they resembled the pox marks and sores of plague victims. To see a garment or a tapestry speckled with random circles was a reminder of disease and death to those people. It was like a visual memento mori warning that the contamination could strike at any moment. And this association with impurity and chaos made dots taboo. The name polka dot itself emerged later during the 1800s, and it was just an opportunistic marketing ploy rather than a nod to innocence. It had nothing to do with children whatsoever. Behind the cheery name was the deeper truth that polka dots were a commercial invention and an early example of how cultural industries repackage once feared motifs as fashionable. Something that we were once afraid of has now become hip and cool. And even as polka dots came to symbolize childlike joy, their deeper symbolism never completely disappeared. In esoteric traditions, repeated circles reflected ideas of infinity, the divine feminine, and hidden unity between outward multiplicity. Polka dots can be used as sort of a shape psychology, and when presented in different colors, it can be used in color psychology to achieve a different response from whoever's looking at it. And here's a meta connection for you that's going to blow your mind. Polka Dot Door, fondly remembered as a wholesome Canadian children's show, was also an early experiment in state-sponsored educational broadcasting produced by TV Ontario. It was designed to standardize learning and shape values across an entire generation. Behind the bright sets and soft voices was a deliberate effort to create a predictable environment that would soothe children into a passive acceptance of scripted lessons. And critics warned that this type of centralized programming subtly conditioned young viewers to equate authority with safety, to absorb information without questioning its source or its purpose. Now check this out. At the heart of the show was Polkaroo, the green kangaroo-like figure who appeared only to one host. And on the surface, it was a clever way to spark a child's imagination. But it also had an uncanny psychological edge. This invisible character created a dynamic where kids were asked to trust an unseen presence simply because an authority figure said it was real. And that's a subtle form of gaslighting that normalizes accepting unverifiable realities. Polkaroo became a smiling phantom. Even the polka dot door itself carried a deeper symbolism. Repetitive dot patterns have long been used to evoke innocence while quietly dissolving mental resistance. And this was a technique straight out the playbook of Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, who argued that familiar symbols and gentle rituals could be powerful tools to engineer consent and guide public opinion without overt force. Day after day, children watched that door open to reveal something new, reinforcing a ritualistic rhythm of compliance and expectation. Beneath the colorful visuals, Polka Dot Door demonstrated how repetition and spectacle can be shaped into an effective form of early social conditioning. Now, all that was heavy, but this is the part that's about to blow your mind. Guess who was the host on Polka Dot Door for years? None other than Maureen, Yes, this Maureen right here, or actress Jane Luke, or Jane Luck. I don't know how to say her name. Now she's on a show about abducted children subjected to psychological experiments and mind control using polka dots.
Do you know where cotton comes from? If you look through the polka dot door, you'll find out. Let's look.
So polka dots are re-emerging in the lab experiments, echoing the same design to lull young viewers into compliance. This parallel is too hard to ignore, so I had to give it to y'all. Her being on this show, them using polka dots, and then her being the host of Polka Dot Door is crazy to me. We'll see what she has in store for us during this season. I know her role is going to get more important. We could go on and on about this topic. We could talk about the Masonic symbolism, and we will throughout the season. We could talk about the Watchman's clock with the wheel symbolism, but I'll switch focus onto the tokens that we see presented in the show and other productions across studios and networks. I promise, this is my last point. We've talked about how the tokens show up in Severance. I've even noticed the coins on the Sinners film, but now we see it in this show, and I think they're adding another meta reference to cryptocurrency. I think the vending machine represents the older money system, just like the ATM machine in the store that said out of order. I think the trick that George was doing with the vending machine was a metaphor for the growth and exchange of cryptocurrency. Inserting a token, receiving the good, which represents the growth, and then taking out the gains as they do in the crypto world. There's even a part where Tim goes to that store to grab some coffee, and you can see that ATM with the out of order sign on it. The Wizard of Oz symbolism has been everywhere. Kalisha even calls Luke Toto, which is Latin for the word total. Luke then tells Hendrix that everything sounds better in Latin.
Primum non nocere. Everything just sounds better in Latin. It's more official.
And all of that Wizard of Oz symbolism points to a change in the money system, due to L. Frank Baum's work being about just that, the financial system. There's so much more that we can go on about, but we have a whole season to get busy. And shout out to MGM for dropping those first 2 episodes in one night. It really gave us a chance with these new characters on the screen and a chance at that symbolism, a bit of the history, and some of those meta connections. And if you like this video, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff for me by tapping that screen a few times. And if you're not subscribed yet, hopefully this will be the video to make you do it. That's all for my video today. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.